Everybody, I'm Madalyn Sklar, host of the Social ROI Chat. We have such a great one today. It's all because of our very special guest who is awesome. Please welcome Karen Freberg. Hey, Karen, how are you?
Good. How are you, Madalyn? How are you doing today?
Oh, so great. You know, it's kind of fun because this chat today is part of our branding of going from Managed Flitter to Managed Social. It's Managed Flitter's new product, their new tool. And so we did the chat from the new Twitter account, and now we're broadcasting live from their new Facebook. So you get to be the first guest of Social ROI after over 2 years of the chat, but being on the new Managed Social. So
that is awesome.
Kudos to you.
Awesome. No, I'm honored. Yeah, no, I thought that I love the rebranding. I love the new name. I really feel like the community just kind of has embraced Managed Social. And so, it's been a great part to, be part of the community for these past couple of years, but then also, see the rebranding. And I'm just, thrilled to have been a guest.
Oh, for sure. Well, I've been having you on for a while, so I'm glad that we were finally able to get you on here and have you share your infinite wisdom with us. But before we dive in, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an associate professor at the University of Louisville. So I teach everything from strategic communication, social media. You were an amazing guest in my advanced social media strategy class last spring. My students are still talking about your Twitter coverage. They were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I do research in social media. Today's topic was very timely on influencer marketing. My very first published article back in 2011 was on influencer marketing. And I do some consulting on the side, and I've had a chance to work with some brands like Adobe, who's been phenomenal, Hootsuite, HubSpot. And then last fall, we had a chance to actually do an influencer marketing campaign for my class with the Breeders' Cup. So it was a lot of fun. So I always try to kind of keep my hand in, the industry so that I'm able to provide real world experiences for my students.
That is so awesome. It's so great that you teach social media, and I was honored to be a guest with your class. I love doing that. That's what I love about the power of the internet and being able to do live streaming like this. And I love going to universities online like this and just come and talk to classes about Twitter. Always a great time. Your class was awesome. So today's chat for Social ROI, the topic was the future of influencer marketing. And it's such a great topic. I always love having this as part of our discussion because people want to know more about influencer marketing. And so I really thought having you come on and talk about its future was absolutely perfect. So why don't we jump into question number one? We'll do some of our questions, get your expanded thoughts. So with question number one, what does it mean to be an influencer in 2019, and how do they help businesses on social?
This was such a great question to be able to kind of start off the chat because, still in 2019, people still have kind of like not necessarily a clear idea of what an influencer is. They might say, oh, it's a celebrity like Kendall Jenner, or it could be your average day Instagrammer that's posting pictures around town. But really, it's a person that has a level of expertise, but a voice that connects with a group of individuals on a social platform or several. But the overall goal for an influencer is to make an impact in the lives, whether it's through various persuasion metrics or strategies, or to actually initiate an action by the audience. Like they have that trust and authenticity in their voice and their expertise that they're able to cultivate that. So you see these mass amounts of influencers, like celebrity influencers. I'm a big fan of The Rock. He's one of my favorite celebrity influencers. But then you have the nano influencers, and you had a question about that in the chat. And so everyone is influential in some sort of capacity, but with influencers today in 2019, it is a term that some people kind of shy away from because it's been somewhat tainted from the cases and crises that we've seen. So I think right now, influencer marketing in general is like kind of at a crossroads. Like, how do we bring back the ethics and the legal implications, but also the professionalism, on both sides of the coin on influencer marketing? So that's kind of where the field is right now.
Yeah, great points on that. So on question number two, why is it important for businesses to look beyond vanity metrics? People still are big with the vanity metrics. So why is it important to look beyond that when identifying potential influencers?
This is such a great question too, because I've had several conversations over the years on this, because everyone's like, oh, this person has 100,000 followers. I'm like, well, anyone could have that if they buy those followers. It really doesn't mean anything.
Right.
If you want to go with bots or, like fake people, it's like, at the end of the day, you have to have some sort of physical evidence saying, okay, this is the drive and change that we were able to make. So what I've tried to do, like in my classes as well as consulting, is really come down to say, okay, here are the metrics that we need to be aware of. Like, we need to look at who is actually responding to the content that we're building and engaging with, but also who is taking action, saying, okay, based on what you said, I am going to go and buy this product, or I'm going to go and join this group, or I'm going to participate in this particular event. Like, we need to look at more advanced and kind of behavioral metrics. And so I think that what's great about the, kind of the shift away from vanity metrics is, one, we're having a lot more discussions about like why we shouldn't be focusing just on this, these type of metrics, but really there's more education that's being put on to kind of look at the measurement metrics, and having great tools that you're able to kind of be able to collect and say, okay, yes, here's the metrics, here's the followings, here's what we're able to see, but here's really what we need to be aware of, the actions, the behaviors that people are initiating from the person that is driving the conversation, that is sharing the content in this particular community.
Right. And so, okay, so this is just so perfect to go into question number 3 then. What are the identifying characteristics of nano influencers? And that's a new term for some people. They're not really quite familiar with what, so maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit more about that. And virtual influencers.
Yeah, no, I mean, so it's interesting, like, of course, everyone was like really big on micro influencers like a year or two ago. Everyone's like, oh,
yes.
Micro influencers are the next big thing. Now it's like nano influencers. And I'm like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next group of influencers? They're even like, well, sub nano. And I'm like, wait, okay. But nano influencers are very much like they're a smaller group than influencers, but they have a very focused and niche area, but their community is highly engaged. So I know that Nikki on the Twitter chat was kind of talking about like the range of followers that basically nano influencers have. And that is one thing too that the industry has not necessarily agreed on, is how many influencers categorize themselves as what it would be like a nano influencers versus a micro influencer. So for me, it's like between a couple hundred to a couple thousand. That's at least my view, but then micro influencers are a little bit more, but that seems to change as the platforms, more people get on board, more people are engaged, maybe buying more followers to create the illusion that they're influential. But virtual influencers are artificial personalities that are displayed online that basically are not real people. So you've seen a lot of these individuals come up and sell actual physical products in the consumer industry, but then being used a lot of times in entertainment and esports. And what's interesting about these influencers is, they're very influential. They have a powerful following, but there's been a lot of conversations in the communities that I've been a part of. It's like, okay, what's the legal implications of this? If you had a virtual influencer influence, people to go to, let's say, to the Fire Festival, who's going to be responsible? What are the legal implications? Like, how are you going to basically determine too whether or not the virtual influencer is following the FCC guidelines? So there's a lot of interesting discussions that are happening there. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm so glad you mentioned Fire Festival, because that's such an interesting case study of like, things going wrong. And that leads me to question number 5. Can you name some examples of where influencer marketing has gone wrong? So you want to talk a little bit about Fire Festival and maybe tell a little bit about it if they're not even familiar with what that is?
Yeah, so Fire Festival, I think, should be kind of a basic must-have case study for all influencer marketing professionals. Like, it should be the first thing that everyone watches, at least like the Netflix or Hulu documentary. I actually like the Netflix one better. But it is a case study of how influencer marketing done extremely well for the wrong reasons, could really have a negative impact. I mean, you look at the individuals that were promoting, the influencers that they were able to bring forth. I mean, like, you could not have had a better execution of influencer marketing, but they were promoting the wrong event. It was misleading. And so this particular event was supposed to be kind of the new Coachella music festival. It was supposed to be luxurious in the Bahamas, but it was quite the opposite. People came there. There were no luxury hotel rooms. The food that they were able to get was basically cheese sandwiches, and it's become kind of this cultural movement and really kind of a pinnacle point of like really raising the red flag of the ethics and legal implications of influencer marketing. And I know I have a few friends that this is their area of expertise, both from teaching as well as research and even practice. And they said like whenever they're going to presentations now, like when they say, yes, my area is influencer marketing, people are kind of like, well, that it just has a very big tainted view, you know, in terms of how people perceive that area of expertise and that area of specialization. So you're kind of seeing people trying to have to say, well, yes, I know you're familiar with Fire Festival. This was one case, but here's how we're going to make sure that we're doing ethical and professional work with influencers. But it definitely is a kind of a turning point for the industry, that particular case.
Absolutely. But you know what's interesting, and I watched both documentaries on Hulu and Netflix, very interesting, makes for a great case study. Mm-hmm. But like they hired models to, you know, have this illusion of this amazing event, but the models didn't know it was not going to turn out the way it did. You know, they just hired people, these big influencers, to promote it on social media. This whole thing was just a big social media promotion that worked really well to bring them lots of money. It's just too bad the event organizer was not a very good person and did not manage the money properly and didn't tell anyone. But it's interesting how, like, you know, these were influencers, like legitimate influencers. So it really shows that things can happen that are beyond anyone's control, because there was no way for them to know that this event was not going to take place.
Exactly. And I think you raise a great point, Madalyn, with like, these are influencers. And, you know, I think too, this was also a warning sign for the influencers themselves about who they align themselves with and really do the research.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of influencers come out, like even here locally in Louisville, we have a lot of influencers that do lifestyle fashion, and they've all said, you know what, the money is great, but I want to be cognizant of how this will reflect back to my brand as well as my community. Because if they view that I'm selling out, they're going to say, well, are you selling out because of the money, or are you being authentic and truthful? How can we trust you? So authenticity and trust right now are two big issues, you know? And so, you know, I think that it's a big lesson to influencers as well. It's kind of a warning sign, like, be aware, do your research on how, like, you're going to align yourself with certain brands and organizations, because your brand is at risk too. So
absolutely. And it's really interesting. It seems like these days you're hearing more and more about businesses getting away from the big influencers and spending their money, their time and energy into the micro influencers and nano influencers. It seems like there is more transparency when you're hiring or working with a smaller influencer, right? Because with the big ones, it's just, you know, it's a numbers game. It's, you know, how much money, you know, they want from you, and to do their little, you know, tweet, and then that's it. I mean, of course, there's the whole, you know, the effect of just one tweet from a big influencer and it will bring you business. But it just seems like people are getting away from that. It seems like every day I read articles now that, you know, that's not the way to do this, to focus more on these smaller influencers. Do you think that this is going to just become the trend now, that it's just going to be really more about these smaller influencers, the micros and the nanos?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be coming, like you are definitely seeing that trend. And I mean, I've seen a few campaigns where you see these brands and say they're going towards more of the individuals that may have a smaller following in nature, but like their group is like highly concentrated, highly engaged, like, so people are very active and very going. But it is kind of that balance where there may be, you know, some cases where the brand, if it's aligned with the community, that is a win-win situation. And that when that happens, it's magical. But, you know, influencers too are also kind of wary too. They're like, I don't want to be viewed as selling out at all, because they know it was their community that brought them to this point. And so they don't want to lose that kind of connection. So if they're bringing something in, they want to make it something that they feel like, one, they're using, but two, that they feel like it would be of value to everyone else. So that it's not like necessarily the hard sell of saying, oh, I'm partnering with Coca-Cola, buy their new vanilla orange flavor. But if it would be more, you know, impactful if like you had someone that like that was their drink of choice and they're like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm able to try this new flavor, check it out. So you have that relationship, but you also view that's more authentic because of the fact that it is aligned with who they are as an influencer.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to finish us off with one more question, the last question, question number 7, which I thought was a great question. What tips do you have for brands looking to engage with influencers in 2019?
Yeah, and I think the big thing that I wrote down in the Twitter chat is, I mean, there's so many resources and so many people that are really doing the right things. Like they're coming up with best practices. There's so many great tools out there that really you're at, your disposal of, like being able to analyze and see what is coming up with influencer marketing. Who are your major influencers? How can you create a relationship? And then really, looking at case studies that have been successful. So I've been really a big fan of the work that Lee Odin, Jason Falls, have written over the years, Mark Schaefer, on influence, and I cite their articles and work all the time in my students, papers as well as my classes. I also love Talkwalker and Zoom. Those were actually 2 brands that really helped me out tremendously this past fall with the Breeders' Cup, because my students actually had to do an influencer marketing campaign for the Breeders' Cup for class. And so we needed to have tools to be able to identify influencers, come up with best practices, which both had great guides for, but then also looking at case studies. And so I know in the Twitter chat, Adobe, I was part of their Adobe Insiders group for the Adobe Summit. Madalyn, it was probably one of the best executed influencer marketing campaigns I've seen. Like, they really gave us a clear foundation of some deliverables. They said, okay, here's kind of what we expect. So there was one question that had like policies, etiquette, professionalism. Adobe thought about it all. And so they said, we want to hear your stories. We want to see your content. We have some KPIs we're trying to measure. They clearly went over, of course, the FCC guidelines, which is very important because FCC, definitely looks at, whether or not things are saying they're sponsored or not. But looking at case studies of brands that have done it well, and I've been pointing to people saying, hey, look at what Adobe did with this. This was fantastic. And there are some experts that this is their area of specialization. And so one person that, I don't know if you've had him on Social ROI yet, but Leo Morjwan, he's an amazing consultant. But his background is he was part of the team that did the Oreo tweet back in 2013. And so he speaks all the time about influencer marketing, and that's one of his areas of expertise. And so I've told people, like, hey, if you want someone to come into for a workshop or speak, definitely talk to him. So, and then Dorothea is also an expert in personal brand and influencer marketing. So I've tried to kind of provide resources that, like, that's the thing about influencer marketing, is really coming down to having the right resources, having the right background and research to kind of gather before you launch an influencer campaign, but also the community in social media, as you said, with the industry. There's so many opportunities to learn and connect and, help each other in this area.
That's awesome. And it's been so great. I feel like I can just talk to you all day about influencer marketing. You are just so well versed with this. You know so much, great insights. So thank you so much for being our guest today. What is the best way for people to learn more about you and get in touch? I'm going to share links here. We got Twitter. People can go follow you on Twitter, and they also have a link to your website. Are those the best places for people to go?
Yeah, Twitter, I'm pretty active. I warn my students that they follow me. I tell them I tweet a lot. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, my blog, my website. I'd love to use this as kind of a jumping off point. I'd love to continue the conversation, and I'm an open book too. So if people have questions about resources or other things that I can help out with, I love helping out people. So just reach out and contact me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen, for being our guest. This has been such a great chat today with the Social ROI. And those of you tuning in, we are now broadcasting from the Manage Social account. So that is where we move the chat, same people, same awesome team. But we're moving it from Manage Flitter to Manage Social, the brand new tool that you've got to check out, managesocial.com. Be sure to go sign up. All right. Thank you. We'll be back next week with another great chat. See you then. Bye, everyone. Bye, Karen.
Bye.
See y'all next week.
Thank you.